Chapter 5. Two Become One. Kirito's announcement that he wished to marry Asuna was received well by many of the shepherds. The first person he told was Robin, who then passed the message on to Libra, the shepherd's priest. It was quickly decided the wedding would take place before they set sail for Vaughn, much to the couple's satisfaction. At this point, the sooner the better. The only regret they both shared was that their friends and family would not be able to attend their union. But Yui would be there, and she was family enough. Although Kazuto would never admit it to Asuna, he was glad that her family would not be attending, especially her mother. She had been nothing but resentful of him ever since Asuna told her parents of their relationship. Her father had been a bit more reasonable, but he would not go against his wife's wishes. And although her brother was kind enough, he wasn't around very often due to his job duties. No. It was best that he and Asuna could be joined like this, surrounded by people that understood them, and of course, their beloved daughter. Yui was easily the most excited about this event, almost dancing with joy when she heard the news. Cordelia and Sumiya immediately set out to make measurements for Asuna's dress, while Lonku secretly took Kazuto to a tailor in Ferox that owed him a favor. Robin tagged along, as he was to be the best man at the event, with Lonku being the groomsman. When Kazuto tried to pay for the suit they finally selected, Robin told him not to worry about it. The wedding will help boost our troops' morale, he explained. It's been a while since they've had a reason to celebrate together. Wouldn't you have had a celebration when Crom's kid before she was born? Kazuto pointed out. I mean, the ruler having an heir is a pretty big deal, right? True, but many of us were scattered at the time. Lonku replied. Do you remember how Crom sent his wife and his friend to gather the rest of the shepherds as soon as you arrived? Yeah, I remember. Kazuto shrugged. What does that have to do with anything? Some of us didn't receive word of Lucina's birth until we rejoined with Crom. Lonku said gruffly. Why would we celebrate if we didn't know? That's fair, Kazuto conceded. Thinking back on the night that he had first fought the Risen, he frowned slightly. I'm surprised I figured out Marth's identity so easily. To be honest, I'm kind of second-guessing myself right now. You don't need to, Robin replied, his voice a little sharper than Kazuto thought was necessary. She bears the brand of the egg salt in her left eye, just like baby Lucina back in Elistal. And the sword she carries is none other than the same falchion that Crom wields. There's only one of those. There used to be, anyway. Yeah, speaking of swords, Kazuto frowned again as he rolled his shoulders. I really need some new ones. The ones I used against that Risen chief shattered, and I don't feel comfortable without a weapon. Oh, don't worry, Robin grinned. I'm working on that. More than that, he would not say. Asuna, for perhaps the 10th time that day, said, No, not this one. I said nothing so extravagant. Sumiya and Cordelia sighed in exasperation. Well, it has to be at least a little fancy, Sumiya protested. I mean, how many times do you get married to the man of your dreams? You need to show off a little. And since Crom is paying for it, money isn't a problem. Indulge a little. I don't want to indulge. I want to look good for Kirito. Asuna muttered. And he and I both prefer things to be simpler. Are you sure it's both of you? Cordelia asked. I mean, you're not sure you're doing this just to please him? What if... I'm sorry, Cordelia. Asuna growled slightly. But between the two of us, which one is actually getting married? Which one of us has success in their pursuit of romance? She saw Cordelia once and immediately regretted it. She mumbled, Sorry, Cordelia, you didn't deserve that. No. You're right, she sighed heavily. Still, how did you get Kirito to notice you in the first place? Asuna grinned and blushed a little bit at the memory. I kinda had him over for dinner, she began. Then I threatened to stab him if he didn't go hunting with me the next day. And that worked? Cordelia said, not sure if Asuna was joking or not. More or less, Asuna admitted. But it wasn't until a few days later that he finally confessed that he had feelings for me, too. A man named Kuradil tried to kill us both, and after he risked his life to save mine, he kissed me. Aww. Sumiya and Cordelia sighed. Yeah, Asuna said, flushing scarlet. No need to get all mushy. Still, I guess it is every girl's dream to be rescued by a knight in shining armor and then get swept off her feet. That's actually not too far off from how Crom proposed to me, Sumiya replied. Right after we defeated Plegia, he gave me a very sweet speech and pledged his life to mine. She smiled fondly at the memory, unaware of Cordelia's slight frown. I would like to hear that story in greater detail someday, Mother, said a soft voice. They all turned to see Lucina standing silently next to the dress rack. Lucina! Sumiya said happily as she hugged her daughter. I'm so glad you could make it! As Asuna watched the two women embrace, she couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. Her mother had never been that close to her, and although she tried not to talk about it too much, even with Kirito, it hurt her deeply. When the two separated, Lucina walked over to Asuna and regarded her silently, as if examining her. This was the first time the two had stood face to face, and Asuna was surprised to find that Lucina actually bore a hint of a semblance to her ALO avatar, albeit with far darker hair. In the future I came from, you were not present, nor was your family, Lucina said, slightly startling Asuna. How did you come here? We're not sure, Asuna replied uneasily. The intensity of the princess's gaze was unnerving, to say the least. Didn't Crom tell you what happened? A little bit, Lucina nodded. I was simply curious to see if you were also time travelers like myself. I apologize if I came off a bit strong. You did a bit, Asuna admitted, but that's all right. I prefer people who are more direct about things instead of beating around the bush. Lucina cocked her head, not understanding. I don't beat bushes for training, she said. I use practice dummies. Dear, it was an expression, Sumiya giggled. Turning to Asuna, she said, now that we've got the introductions out of the way, let's get back to picking out a dress for your wedding, Oh, Mother, Lucina said, suddenly invigorated. I saw a dress near the front of the store that would be perfect for such a happy occasion. Before Sumiya could ask what she meant by that, Lucina was fairly dragging her mother towards the entrance. Cordelia frowned as they left before turning to Asuna in an undertone. I don't think Her Highness understands that some of the clothes near the front are clearance items. The wedding was a day that Kazuto and his family would never forget. The entirety of the shepherds were gathered in a forest clearing to celebrate the union of their new friends, including Lucina, who had decided to stay on with the shepherds for a while. The ceremony was performed by Libra, the group priest. The vows were exchanged, and they were clear and to the point, befitting their cut-and-dry personalities. Asuna loved Kazuto, and he loved her. That was all there needed to be to it. Robin was the best man, with Longku being the groomsman. Robin had managed to get a hold of a ring well appropriate for the occasion on behalf of his friend, and when he saw Asuna's smile light up at the sight of it, he couldn't help but feel happy and jealous for his friend. Asuna's crew included Cordelia as the maid of honor, Sumiya as the bridesmaid, and of course, Yui as the most adorable flower girl. The little girl was smiling the whole time, afterwards commenting on how her face had never hurt from smiling before, bringing a round of laughs to those that heard it. After the ceremony itself, a feast was held in honor of the new couple. Normally, Kazuto would be uncomfortable in a position to receive so much attention, but for the first time, he didn't mind at all. His life was now joined with Asuna's, and he couldn't be any happier. Once some of the eating had been done with, Cordelia and Stahl began playing music on their flutes, inviting people to dance. Kazuto claimed that he wasn't a dancer, and he was stubborn, so it wasn't until Kurama began to dance with Sumiya that Asuna finally convinced him to go dancing with her. Sighing, he gave in to the inevitable, placed his hands on her back and in her other hand. Asuna was about to tell him that she could walk him through it when he began to move in a very smooth manner to the beat of the music. Soon she was dancing with the young man that moved as though he had been born into it. I had no idea you could dance, she giggled. He grinned in response and replied, well, you never asked. And besides, I gotta have some tricks up my sleeve for you later on. He winked, bringing a blush to her face. First rule of tactics, according to Robin, is that you should always have a potential ace up your sleeve. Are we engaging in warfare, Mr. Black Swordsman? Asuna raised her slender eyebrows. Not yet, we're not, he winked. Off to the side, Robin smiled as he watched Kirito and Asuna dance together, without a care in the world. He made a mental note to thank Olivia for teaching Kirito how to dance for his wedding day. He was still watching them when he was approached by Lucina, who wore a neutral expression. Greetings, she said as she stood to look on beside him. Good past noon, he said with a smile. How's the day find you? A little confused, if I'm being honest, Lucina admitted. Oh? Robin raised his eyebrow. How so? It's just, the future princess hesitated, trying to get her words right. I don't see how everyone can be so relaxed, considering we're about to go to war across the ocean itself. And after that, we still need to find a way to prevent Grima's return. Robin nodded, understanding his companion's confusion. I can see how this might be confusing, he said. But your father was the one that once told me that we should take every moment that we can to enjoy it to the fullest. He said that your aunt, Emrin, never took the time to enjoy life the way that she could have, and he wants us all to learn from that mistake. When Lucina didn't reply, Robin grinned and shook his head. Come on, he said as he grasped her hand, surprising her. Sir Robin? She squawked as he began leading her onto the dance area. What are you doing? Showing you what your father meant, he replied. My fourth rule of tactics, lead by example. And he placed his other hand higher up on her back as he guided her into the proper stance. Good lady, may I have this dance? Lucina was aware of her mother and father grinning at her, so she blushed under the attention. Very well, seeing as you brought me out here, she sighed. The tactician's smile widened, and he began the dance as Cordelia and Stahl struck up a new tune. They passed close to Crom and Sumiya. The prince grinned at his best friend and said, Just remember, Robin, I've got falchion if you try anything funny with my daughter. Wouldn't dream of it, my lord, Robin replied with the same smile. Both of them had to hide laughs at Lucina's reddened face. However, she was able to move past her embarrassment to finish the dance with Robin, which was what he had hoped for. He wanted Lucina to feel at home here. Crom had told him of her plans to return to her own blighted future when the future had been changed the way that she intended. A plan that he and her mother opposed vehemently. He had told Robin to try and help her accept this new timeline as her true home instead of the dead future that she had come from. Robin had agreed to do whatever he could to make that happen. Lucina looked past the man dancing with her in the eyes, and had to fight down the urge to blush. His eyes were the gray orbs that exuded gentleness and kindness, more so than she had ever remembered in the future past. The Robin in her future had been kind as well, but his face was physically lined with worry and sorrow the entire time that she'd known him. He smiled rarely, and was only whenever he was with Crom and his family. This Robin had a much fresher face, and his shoulders seemed to be able to bear the weight of the responsibility almost with ease, for they did not constantly droop as they had in the future. The one thing that stayed truly the same was his hair color, a silvery white that somehow reminded her of the moon on its brightest nights. When she was little, she remembered telling her mother that she wanted to marry Robin. At the time, the Queen had laughed, hurting her daughter's feelings, until she explained that Robin wouldn't always stay the same age, and he was too old for her. Lucina had buried these memories, but now, dancing with the tactician, all those memories came to the fore, causing her face to redden despite her efforts to quell it. Robin noticed this and frowned slightly as the dance came to an end. "Are you alright?" he asked, concerned. "Yes, I'm fine," she lied, releasing his hand and stepping out of his embrace. I need some water and a moment to sit." And she left rather abruptly, leaving a bewildered Robin behind. As she walked off, her mind whirled with a number of thoughts. She had come back to save her father in the future, not indulge in some childhood crush. What was wrong with her? "Nice one, Lady Killer," Kazuto remarked as he passed by the befuddled tactician while dancing with his daughter. Yui giggled as Robin reddened rapidly. "Shut up!" When the evening drew near, the couple began to receive their gifts. From Crom, Kazuto was offered the position of assistant tactician, which would be an increase in pay in the young swordsman. He eagerly accepted the position, as he knew that Robin was overworked, and this would grant him the opportunity to make more money to provide for Yui and Asuna. From Sumiya and Cordelia, Asuna received a thunder tome that would allow her to cast more spells than the standard military tome. "Use it to protect your family," the Pegasus Knight said. Asuna promised that she would. Lastly, Kazuto was approached by Robin and the newest recruit, a strange young man named Henry. The latter was carrying a long bundle, a strange smile plastered on his face. He giggled. "How are ya? Like any special day?" Kazuto looked to Robin for an explanation. The tactician simply grinned and placed his hand on the bundle that Harry carried. "Henry's our new dark mage," he said, "and he was able to help me put together your wedding present." With that, he threw back the covering on the bundle. Kazuto's jaw dropped as he beheld his elucidator and dark repulsive swords. "These are my..." Henry cackled again. "Robbie here showed me that the drawing he made, so I took a couple of swords, used some hexes to turn them into these bad boys. I wonder how much they can make people bleed." Kazuto ignored the last part and grasped the hilt before looking to Robin for approval. When the Grandmaster nodded, Kazuto pulled the blades out, their balance as perfect as he remembered them to be. He smiled broadly and thanked both men for the gift, to which they both declared it was no problem. Strapping his swords to his back, Kazuto finally felt a sense of true familiarity settle in. Now that he was married to Asuna, along with Yui being able to be part of them as a real girl, everything was exactly as it should be.